Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy Monday. I'm Ashley Bermel, and we are here today with Leanne Dunne. She is a realtor, ICAR member, and short sale and foreclosure specialist. And we are so lucky to talk to her today with Wake Up YPN. We are going to have the opportunity to talk to Leanne about her amazing expertise. And of course, if you have any questions, be sure to write those in the comments. So, Leanne, without further ado, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of understanding about your background?
Sure. Thanks, Ashley. Good morning. So I have been actually in the real estate business for 19 years, licensed for 17 years, and I'm currently with Leppy Krieger Realtors, which has been a welcome change for me. And so we're just kind of doing our thing, trying to keep our head above water with all that's going on in the real estate world.
Right. I mean, I can only imagine. There's a lot going on right now in terms of short sales, or at least discussion about it. When in
Mhm.
the market do we typically see a rise in short sales? And are you yourself anticipating an increase in short sales this year?
Well, it all began pretty much on the coast back in '08. So like '06, '07, we were seeing rumblings on the East Coast, West Coast, major cities. Chicago's taking a major hit. Iowa had a hit. I mean, I say Iowa, I'm going to say our area that we work within had a hit, but by no means was it the magnitude that people were really suffering on the coasts and larger urban areas. Um, so we had quite a few, but they were manageable if you knew what you were doing, I think. And so I ended up, my very first short sale was in 2006. That was kind of a precursor to the short sales. I have successfully completed 55 short sales and only had one that I was not able to complete because it was a lot of factors behind it, that it was just really a very big mess. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to gain the expertise and build the relationships and know how to navigate this stream. Do I think it's coming? I think there will be short sales. I think it's inevitable, but it's not going to look like we saw in the mid 2000s, I don't believe. Main reason is that we have more equity in our homes than a lot of people did then. The interest rate is not as high as it was. Interest rate is staying low. Where I think the rub is going to come when the moratoriums are going to be over and they have to end at some point. I think that's when we're going to see them because people have not been paying their mortgage in many cases now for more than a year. That doesn't mean your obligation goes away at all. Um, there has been a little bit related to penalties and things like that that would make it less, but that interest still keeps accruing. So anybody that hasn't paid their mortgage, they're going to owe a lot. They're going to be surprised at the number when they see what they currently owe and what the banks are going to start asking them to pay. So we are in a bit, I think, of a rocky spot in that regard, and I do think we'll see short sales, but they aren't the end of the world. They truly aren't. Um, of course, it's nerve-wracking to be out of something in your norm, but it truly is very doable and very manageable um, if you follow directions and take the right course.
So, for those of us that might not know what a short sale is, can you explain a little bit about the difference between a short sale and a traditional real estate transaction?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's start about the big foreclosure bear first, okay? Foreclosure is when the bank files a lawsuit in the court on behalf of the investor saying, we want to take this property back because this homeowner is not paying. It goes through the court system. In Iowa, it's a very lengthy process. Somebody can stay in their home up to 18 months before they're actually foreclosed on. So it's a big, long process. It has to be served correctly and all of that. So once the order is in place from the court, then it'll generally go to a sheriff's sale. That's a foreclosure. That is the most detrimental thing that can happen to someone's credit, is to be foreclosed upon. Flip side is short sale. Short sale is where the bank agrees to take less than what is owed. Okay, so we know this is a very low number in our market. Well, let's just say you owed $100,000. the bank maybe would agree to take $80,000 and write off the rest. Now, in some states, there is no opportunity to write off the difference. In Iowa, there is. That's a very, very important thing that someone working short sales needs to understand. What state does that investor live in that holds that note? Because they will try and push to collect that difference from a creditor that does not, that goes through the short sale. So that always has to be negotiated. And sometimes that was pretty rough, but the law's the law in Iowa, and you have to kind of help them understand that. So it's far better for someone to go through a short sale because there's not such a drastic hit on their credit. They can recover from it faster. I actually had the shortest time with someone who had a short sale, 2 years to the month later, bought a very nice new home.
Wow.
What they did was they, cleaned up the rest of their credit issues, and they didn't have this huge burden over them, saved some money, and I helped them buy a new home. And so that's a good thing, as opposed to going through the foreclosure process. And banks do not want to go through the foreclosure process because it costs them, the average number is $50,000 to do a foreclosure per property. So it's a very expensive proposition. So short sale, again, is just taking the short, the difference that's owed versus what the client can pay, and writing that off. But it has to go through the process of the short sale, and every lending institution is a little bit different.
Liam, you just did a beautiful job of explaining that in very easy terms to understand, and I really appreciate that. I mean, you definitely clearly outlined some of the benefits of doing a short sale as opposed to a foreclosure. But what are some of the challenges of doing a short sale transaction?
Well, there'd be two things. I think the first thing is when a homeowner is underwater, they're so embarrassed, and there's maybe some other familial things going on. That's often a case, or work related. They're so embarrassed to admit they can't make their house payment. So a lot of times they'll wait until the very, very last minute, like, you got to get out of your house kind of letter comes. They would be so much better to just say, hey, I'm going to go through this and get through it before we're at the sheriff's sale point. Because once it gets in that point of a sheriff's sale or near there, it makes it much harder. We've done it, but you just have to move at lightning speed as opposed to realistically going through the process and kind of having to beg and plead with the lender. This is going to be better for everybody because of blah, blah, blah. The interesting thing to know is once you start a short sale, all collection efforts have to cease. So that's a really important thing. And when homeowners realize that, that gives them some peace. So what I say to a homeowner, if they come to me and say, hey, I'm behind in my payments, what do I do? Da, 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 da. I say, well, first thing we want to do is, the very first thing you want to do is get them to sign a release so you can speak to their lender. Okay. 9 times out of 10, that lender's going to have their own form that they want to use, but at least gets you in the door to talk, and then they'll send that form. So your real first step is working with the lender where the money is owed, and there's lengthy paperwork that has to be completed. And I sit down with that person and we go through it. And there's personal questions, and I just start off and tell them, look, I'm going to ask you some really personal things, and I apologize. And if you're not comfortable answering them, just tell me. We can see what we can do to work around it. But getting that paperwork filled out to get back to the lender, that stops the collection process at that moment. So it's very important to do this early, not, suffer for a year or more waiting to be kicked out. So that's, to me, that's the hardest part. The other difficult part is if you don't have relationships established with a lender. So what I call them the big boys. If you talk about from back in the day, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, some of those are still around, some of them are not. but you need to get in with a staff person and just try and develop a relationship over the phone with them. And that makes it so much better. And they'll rotate in and out if you're going through a process, but you can say, hey, I worked with so and so, and this is where we are. It helps them too. So again, it's like anything. I feel for success is to build the relationship. So it's whether it's Hills or Credit Union, which is super easy, or somebody in what feels like Never Land in California. So those are the probably two biggest challenges. That it's working with people at a time in their life that's very traumatic to them.
Now, if you're an agent and you're representing a seller that's going through a short sale, is there any sort of lack of security knowing that you'll be compensated or that the bank will stick with you throughout the entire process? Or does it kind of vary based on whatever bank you're dealing with?
So when that first bank of documents, that's not a good, first bundle of documents comes out, there will be something in there saying the commission shall be. Now the bank can cut the commission. And excuse me, sorry, I didn't shut this off. It can cut the commission and not tell you till the end. So if I'm the listing agent, I will put in there, commission is subject to the lender's discretion to be determined at the time the short sale is approved. So I've only had, I think it's one that I can remember where they went down a little bit, but I would put that in a listing when I do the listing, saying it's subject to the lender's discretion. This is what we think it is, but it might end up being that. So everybody gets paid, and it does not cost that seller anything in particular. It's the lenders building in those expenses. But things to know that they don't sometimes allow our transaction fees. So who has to pay that? You're either paying it or you're telling that client, you're going to have this $250 transaction fee. So you've got to kind of set the table for that.
Are there instances when you're representing a buyer that the process can be a little bit more challenging?
If I have a buyer who wants to buy a short sale, I talk pretty clearly and pretty bluntly about what it looks like with the listing agent, because generally speaking, every single case is all determined when the bank gives the approval of the short sale, which means they do their own appraisal. They might ask for updated financial statements. They have so many going that you are at the bottom of the stack and one day you show up at the top of the stack, so those documents are outdated. So there's so many things. So I strongly recommend, if we have someone who has to be moved by a certain date, that maybe this is not the home for them, unless they have interim housing somewhere, because there's no set date to close. It's in the bank's hands. It's when they tell us that we will close, we shall close. And also some of them give us a very short window to close. Some of us will give us 2 weeks to close. 21 days to close is a very long time. So think about that in this current market where we have the appraisers backed up. That's a difficult situation. So there's got to be some very clear communication between everyone. So overall, short sales aren't for just the person who's looking for their first home maybe, or moving up or whatever, if they don't have flexibility and where they can, hang their hat for a few days or weeks.
So how do agents best prepare themselves if they either want to represent a buyer or a seller that's interested in short sales?
Well, for a short sale representative, I think if you want to be a seller's agent, you should get the SFR designation through NAR, Short Sale Foreclosure Resource. When I decided I wanted to do this, I had worked a little bit in similar kind of situation in the insurance industry. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, but didn't know what that really meant. So I wanted to get some education. I think that was 2005. And there was nothing to be offered here in Iowa at all. So I just started digging around. Well, here there was one being offered in Illinois, in Joliet. and this name will ring a bell to some of you. It was Marquis Lemons at that time, now known as Marquis Lemons Ryle. She was the short sale queen in Chicagoland at that point. And I kind of reinvented the wheel for myself here locally, and she had done it in Chicago. She was the short sale maven in Chicagoland. So I went and got that designation because I needed to know what to do and not do. But of course, that doesn't teach you everything. But then, work with attorneys that deal in these kinds of things, talk with the lenders themselves. Sometimes you find some. So I remember the very first one I did, I spoke with whoever this attorney was that was handling this property that was about to foreclose, and there was many extenuating circumstances. And I was like, well, what do I do with this one? It was a tough situation. So I called the attorney's name up. She gave him. I just told him, I said, hey, my name is Leanne Dunne. I'm from Iowa City, Iowa, and I know nothing about short sales. I said, but I need to help this client. He was kind of a gruff New York accent, and he said, well, if you want to follow my instructions, we'll get through it together. And that's how it all started in 2006. So anyway, that's just what it was. And then, because I could get them through and be successful, that people could go forward and own a home again or just be free of the debt, word passed very quickly. So I think the best thing which you can do for no matter what you want to do in life is education, education, education. What I would advise you not to do is just jump into them with a wing and a prayer because you want a commission, because it's a lot of hard work, but it's very, very rewarding at the end of the day. So for a buyer's agent, you really need to talk to that listing agent and see what are the rules of the playground. What are we dealing with in this one? They should be able to tell you the banker's name. They should be able to tell you what's going on. If they can't, you've got a ill-prepared listing agent doing a short sale.
No, I sold or dealt with short sales back when we had the recession in 08, 09, and it was interesting because there was certainly a bunch of rules that varied per bank and institution that you were dealing with. How much has changed? Do you feel like the climate and the rules and restrictions have changed a lot since then? Or do you feel like the same applies where not one short sale is going to be similar to another?
I don't think it'll be much change because, we didn't have so many short sales, so people went off and made money in other ways, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's going to be probably similar to what it was back in the day, that people are going to have to kind of scramble a little bit more, but maybe the learning curve won't be as steep. So I'm hoping there was a platform that became very common to use called Equator, and that is where you actually processed your whole transaction from beginning to end. The lenders were part of that. I'm hoping that will start at the beginning if we get rolling into these, because it does kind of keep everybody on task. So I'm hoping that the curve is not quite so steep.
I know oftentimes there's a conception that when you're a buyer, you're getting this amazing deal with a short sale. Would you like to kind of clarify that misconception that exists?
Yeah. So I think, right now, I think we all could agree that prices are pretty inflated. And so that can create a problem going on down the road, I think. There isn't a great deal to be had. The banks do not want to, they dictate when you will lower the price and by how much. Generally speaking, it's 10% a time. Sometimes if, the property needs some more extra work, it might be 20, but think 10% on, is not a lot on your investment, really and truly. So, and then the big thing is, what are you getting into when you buy it? You can do your inspections, but no one's going to make any corrections. And these banks, they have a service that comes in and they secure the property, which means change the locks, put a different lockbox in. But I've had a couple where they didn't winterize the house and the entire plumbing system was bad. That buyer had people in the family that could do this and that, but it cost them quite a bit to redo the plumbing system. So I guess it's what your tolerance level is. I
Right.
see a lot of buyers wanting things right now and in perfection. So I don't know how many people, really want to take on a project. Some will, some like it, but majority of people, they want it to be pretty good when they get there.
I think oftentimes though that there's this thought process that they're coming in and they're buying, $300,000 house for 150, and it won't need a lot of work, and it work goes smoothly. And I think it's kind of interesting that that's certainly a Hollywood tale.
It truly is. It truly is. Yeah, you don't save that much money. Yes, you get a bit of a break. You do, but what you may end up putting in might be more than you anticipated.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, for those of you watching, we have a class coming up in November. I suggest everyone takes a look at it because it's certainly interesting to have a conversation. I would be very surprised if you're in real estate and you've never been asked about short sales. So it's important that we are able to speak intelligently about it. And do you have anything to add, Leanne, on your end?
That class is November 10th, actually, and the instructor is Jorge Gomez. And Mr. Gomez is actually just a delightful instructor, I believe. And I think it'd be, for no matter what, just for 3 hours of CEU, you would learn something that would be very helpful to you. And I invite anyone who comes across this situation, feel free to reach out to me. And I will be glad to help you, walk you through it, give you any pearls of wisdom that I might have. So it's an interesting sector of the real estate business. I actually love it. And people might think I'm a little crazy, but for me, it's the challenge, and then just really trying to get somebody out of a predicament that they feel really bad about. So.
Well, do you work in Johnson and Lynn in terms of your assistance? Gotcha. Another county, or Cedar, Iowa as well, or no?
All around.
All around?
Actually, I've done some short sales across the state of Iowa because of my expertise in being able to process a short sale. So do I do any of the marketing and put it on that MLS? No, I'll work something out with someone so it's properly marketed, but from the short sale side, anywhere in Iowa. So I've done a couple there.
Well, Leanne, we are so blessed to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
And seriously, this is so valuable to have you. So thank you for everything.
Anytime. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
We'll be talking soon.
I'm sure. Okay. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.